Hello, Underworld fans. I'm Josh Horowitz. I'm hosting this Facebook Live for Underworld Blood Wars. You know this lady, the one and only Kate Beckinsale, star of Underworld. It's good to see you, Kate.
Nice to see you too.
Congratulations. Last time we talked at one of these Facebook Lives, we were in a weird, sketchy room at Comic-Con.
Right.
Now we're just in a random hotel room. So we're moving up in the world, I think.
It's less and less sketchy each time.
Last time we were facing a sketchy bathroom, as I recall. It was like open.
It's nice to not see a toilet.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a rule of thumb, I think, in Facebook Lives, guys. That's a tip. I've got a lot of questions for you from your fans, so I'm going to run through them, and a lot of people are curious about this one. It opens tomorrow, Underworld Blood Wars, of course, the 5th installment in the series. First of all, what are the ingredients that go into a great Underworld movie, you think?
I think interesting conflict, exciting action, and new villains.
There you go. You have all that.
Yes, you do.
So are you as surprised as anybody that you're here today on the 5th installment of the franchise? You always hope when you start something like this that it's going to have longevity, that the fans will keep coming back. But I know
I did the first movie kind of as an experiment
Right.
to see if I could get away with it. So I was never ever thinking that this was going to be, you know, something I'd be doing years and years later, to be honest with you. Also because it's not based on a video game or a comic book or series of books, it wasn't like there was a trajectory of movies that we knew were lying ahead of us. So it's always been a kind of, you know, heat of the moment decision.
Totally. Okay, so did you have a say about the costume on the first film? Were you involved in that process? Because it's become obviously so iconic. How did it develop, and what do you remember about the first time you saw it, you tried it on, etc.?
I remember being really alarmed because I'd seen sketches and I'd heard it was going to be leather, and I thought, you know, that can kind of go one of two ways, really. And
Right.
And actually, I was pretty pleased when it turned out to be latex, and also it's just easier to, you know, roll around and fight in. But it was pretty much. I think there was some debate over the boots, and I got to weigh in on that. But it was, you know, it was. We had a great costume designer on the first movie, and so I was pretty happy with it.
It must be mind-blowing for you as an actor. I mean, not every role becomes something that people go as at Halloween, at Comic-Cons, etc. And again, has this longevity. When you started to see people dress up as Celine, just give me a sense of what that was like for you when you saw people do their own
That was wild.
thing.
I mean, I didn't, you know, I've not really been on social media very long, so it was only really at Comic-Con where I would see people dress up like that, and they were dressed up like lots of other people too. So I wasn't, you know, I wasn't sure it was a thing. I think it was the people getting tattoos of Celine that blew my mind the most. So that seems like such a commitment.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for the aspiring Celine cosplay enthusiast in terms of how to
tips? Can't wear underwear.
Very good.
You know, so.
Be committed, guys.
Yeah.
All the way.
Yeah, all in.
What makes you've been in all kinds of different films, all different genres. What makes an Underworld set different than other films, would you say?
I think it's, you know, first of all, there's a lot of British actors walking around in man skirts, which I've never had that experience before on any other movie. It's also, you know, there's people practicing fights in corners all the time. You know, there's never quite enough time in training just to kind of get it done. So everyone's kind of rushing off into the parking lot and practicing the fights, and so that's different. There's also a lot of laughing and joking around, I think, because a lot of the scenes are quite intense. It tends to make actors calibrate the situation by giggling in between.
Well, kind of dovetailing off of that, I'm curious, like when you're on a set like this, like when do you feel at your coolest or when do you feel at your silliest? What are the extremes? Because I'm sure it goes kind of both directions, right?
I tend to feel my silliest when I'm asked to use a new weapon that I've not used before, and I think immediately feel like a fraud and that I'm going to be fired.
Because not only do you have to wield, you have to look like you've been doing it and do it
for
better than
thousands of
anybody
years,
else.
I know it's the worst case scenario. And when do I feel my coolest? Usually I think when there's been some stunt planned and it's all a bit, oh dear, and it actually goes well.
Yeah.
Then you feel a bit like,
And yet you mentioned the weapons. There's some relatively new weaponry in this one because we associate the guns with Celine, of course.
Yes,
I know you are comfortable with.
Yeah, I know, and that was my comfort zone, and they hurled me out of it a bit on this one. So we've got some swords and knives.
And you've acclimated a bit. It's still a
I
little
still
weird.
rather weapon of choice for me would still be the guns because I kind of know what I'm doing. But I grappled with the sword in the end with a lot of complaining.
Here's another question. How was it working with Tobias Menzies?
It was good. I love it when we get in, you know, every time we keep killing our villains, so we always have to go, where are we going to find our Scarlett O'Hara bad guy? You know? And he's, I think, genuinely quite scary in the movie, and you really do buy that he's, you know, he's out for kind of world domination.
Yeah, I know Outlander fans are obsessed with him too.
Yeah.
He's got quite a presence.
He's got quite a presence.
Right. Speaking of presence, last time we were in the presence of the great Theo James.
Right.
Who's more unprofessional on set, you or Theo?
Me.
But you wear it as a badge of honor. That's okay.
Yeah,
it's
I think
okay.
Theo's just more sneaky. I'm pretty transparent about
Mhm.
it, whereas I think Theo's a bit more, up his sleeve-ish.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. What's a good way to get under the skin of Theo James if somebody wants to rattle him?
I'm not sure I ever have. I heard he had a fear of weasels, but that turned out to not be true, so don't bother coming at him with a weasel, because
Right.
he's actually okay with it.
And you went all the way.
It was a ferret, but I think they're in a similar family. He was going to be frightened of a weasel.
When you're talking rodents, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
guys. Okay, if Celine were to team up with another superhero or another badass
Yeah.
hero, who would you want it to be?
Blade.
There was talk of that at one point,
We
right?
were really excited about it for a second, but I think that they have other plans for Blade, but that would have been cool. Yeah.
Okay. What does fake blood taste like?
It's a combination of the syrup that they make cotton candy out of,
Okay.
which isn't that bad,
Yeah.
and then that sort of child's ear infection medicine taste that's not great.
Yeah.
So
A little medicinal.
a little bit of that, just so you're not kind of dying for gallons of it, but
Right.
you can handle it.
The good news is that you won't get a cold for a couple of weeks after you do a scene.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I know you've been asked this a lot, but I'm curious. After doing so many of these, hardest stunt over the years? What's the when you think back, when you have a nightmare, when you think back over all your times? What was the
I
stunt
think
that
it
really?
would be anything in the first movie because I'd not done anything like that before, and I was just so out of my element. And I think it was probably the wire work and going upside down. The combination of it being the first movie and being upside down on a wire, I think, is probably
Right.
more scary than anything.
What about? Can you think of pinpoint a hardest line to deliver? Because I mean, it is pretty serious. Like you kind of have to sell it. You do have to sell it. Was there one that was hard to wrap your mind around and kind of like how to deliver it the right way?
No, when they're like that, sometimes you try and just pass them in front of Theo.
I'm going to be a generous actor here. Theo, you
I
take
think
this.
Theo would say that.
Yes, Celine would never say
Yeah.
that. Obviously in the first one we talked about this, that you had never done anything remotely like this
No.
before. So
Nookies and things with my brothers.
Right.
That was as far as I could go.
So what was the workout regimen back then versus what it is now? Is it alter in every single film?
Well, sort of, because I had to be taught really basic things like how to not run like a girl, or how to throw a punch and not break my own thumb and things like that, which was
Right.
which really were the basics. I don't have to obviously spend any time doing that now.
Right.
It's more that the first movie was a very, very, very small budget, and so our fight sequences were quite limited. Whereas now they're a lot more convoluted and complicated,
Right.
and so there's a lot more choreography to learn than there was in the beginning.
Do you remember on the first one, was there a point where you felt like not uncomfortable and actually comfortable with the action and saying like, okay, they took the right risk, I'm actually owning this and I feel...
Not till I saw the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Really. What was it like then seeing the movie?
It was amazing. It looked so cool to me and didn't feel at all cool while I was doing it, so it was a nice surprise.
Do you have a favorite location you've shot in over the years? Because I mean, you've used a lot of practical sets over the years, etc.
I was really fond of Budapest. I loved that city a lot. That was our first one. But Prague was pretty great. I mean, it really does add a certain weight to the movie when you really are in a real castle or a real dungeon. That really does help.
Are any of the skills we've discussed, any of the stunts, etc., are any of them applicable in real life? Can you actually use any of these for practical purposes?
What, like weapons and things?
Well, sure, weapons. I guess I'm just saying, like, in your day-to-day life, has it ever emerged, like, oh, I actually know how to do that?
No, but I'm always quite glad to know that when used in a certain way, the elbow can be like a knife.
Good. Ask nice questions, I promise. What does your daughter think of having a mom that's like one of like the most like preeminent like ass-kicking heroines in cinema? Does she respect you more or less? Does she get a kick out of it?
I mean, she seems to be incredibly neutral about it, I think, which is probably the healthiest version. I think she was, 4 when I did the first one, so I think she probably at the time thought everybody's mother is doing this. And now is at an age where she has a healthy amount of absolutely no interest whatsoever.
Right. That's healthy for
I
anything
think
marriage,
that's
right?
healthy, yeah. I think so.
How can you peg an Underworld fan on the street? Because you have all different manner of fans from different kind of films you've been in. How do you know you're encountering an Underworld fan? What does that give away?
I have to say, first of all, if they work for immigration or TSA, number one, they're like the greatest fans of Underworld. That's the movie they always mention, which is really fun actually. But no, they tend to be really nice. I don't know. They've always been. I've never had anyone kind of come and start shouting at me for, for they wish they read the movie differently.
No, it's good enthusiasm,
Really
right?
nice fans.
Yeah. Is there anything that Celine hasn't done at this point that you've like begged the producers to do or suggested that they haven't taken you
No,
up
but
on
it's
yet?
always been, because you know, it is slightly hilarious to be going around in that outfit and wielding things. And you always want to be concurrently shooting the comedy version of it. You know, she goes home and gets her apron on and
Right.
starts making an omelette.
Well, I think anyone that follows you on social media knows you have a healthy sense
Yeah.
of humor. So I feel like on the cutting room floor there is a comedic version of every Underworld
Oh, sure.
film.
Yeah, pretty much. But I have always kind of longed for that. Or just to kind of,
Mhm.
you know, cooking calendar or something.
Coming soon after Underworld 5.
Yeah.
And last thing is, I mean, what do you hope that Celine's legacy, what do you hope that Underworld's legacy is for film fans, film in general?
I think what I like so far is that it has become, over the period of time from the first one to this one, it has become much more commonplace for there to be a female at the lead of this kind of a movie. And that feels pretty good to be part of moving the needle on that. That feels really good.
You should be proud. Underworld Blood Wars comes out tomorrow. Kate, thanks as always for stopping by. Good luck with the film. See you next time. And thanks for watching, guys.